We want to welcome you back to All Things Real Estate. Once again, your hosts, Gary Kelly and Brad Avergon.
All right, we're back at it. I'm Gary Kelly with Castanet Realty Group, and I am joined by the ever debonair Brad Avergon of Fairway Still Independent Mortgage.
Absolutely.
So we were talking about getting, your home ready to sell, and if you have kids with smelly soccer gear in the house. One of the things I suggest to people is that they leave out laundry baskets, and you can put kids' toys in that. You can put, if kids come in from soccer, they can throw it in there. And then when it comes to a showing, you can whisk that easily away from the main stage, so to speak, which I think helps.
Agreed.
The other thing that I tell people is you've got to see a house. It's great that we're going to be out showing houses at night. Frankly, real estate agents, we have families too, and we don't want to be out at 8 o'clock at night trying to find the lockbox underneath the hose faucet. You've got to see a house during the day too. That's really important. And I tell the story that Sue was actually out buying a house, happened to be in Wells, Maine, and it was a adorable little cottage-like house, and it had this, I'll never forget. It had an avocado green and yellow appliances in the kitchen that actually worked far better together than I'm describing. And we walked outside during the day, and there was this hulking public service building housing police and fire for Wells. And it's like, I'm not sure you want to live next to that. It's just noise and lights and all that.
Yeah, you know what? You bring up a really, really interesting point, Gary, one that I'm actually living myself. So where I used to live, or where we used to live, was an area right next to the Mass Pike. Now, one would think that one heard a lot of noise from the Mass Pike, but actually, based on the geography of where our home was located, we didn't hear the Pike at all. Now, where I live now, we actually we're much closer to Route 9, and which is fine, but we're also because Route 9 has a lot of traffic on it. We're not far from Route 30 either. I happen to hear a lot more ambulances and fire trucks running up and down, way more than I would have thought. And yet we are in this residential area. There's no double line street by me or anything like that, but it's the way that sound carries. So I think your point about going not only to look at a house in the daylight, but listen to what's going on. Go visit a house that you're looking to buy at different times of day, to see and hear what it sounds like. One of the examples that I use is sometimes you can have, if you look at an aerial view of where a house is, you can have train tracks not too far. Well, that's fine when the train's not there, but when the train's running, you need to know kind of what that sounds like. And so you want to know roughly what time and how often does that train come by? Because if it comes by at 5 in the morning, you'll be up at 5 in the morning.
Realtor.com has a sound chart based on where you are in a town. How loud do they predict it would be? And I find it fascinating that they can predict that. And based on my personal experience, they've done a pretty decent job of capturing what a place is going to sound like. Someone says, Southborough, it's a sleepy town. Southborough is a sleepy town. Okay. However, you have Route 9, you have 495 based on where you are in the town. You do have the Mass Pike, 85, etc. It's rarely completely silent in Southborough. I don't know if it's ever completely silent in Westborough where you live.
No,
except at 9 o'clock when they roll up the sidewalks.
That's right. But that's the other thing is, again, it's more about knowing what the sounds like. But don't not buy a house necessarily because there's sound coming by. There's all sorts of technical devices now that emit what's called white noise, which is background noise that you just get used to and kind of takes away from the other sounds going by. It's like when you have a fan running in a room. Sometimes you don't hear necessarily what's going on outside. So that can be a good.
I used to live in Westboro, and I lived in an area that was, I don't know, a few blocks from the high school. And I remember on Saturdays really appreciating the sound in the fall of the band practicing. It was just fun. Yeah, did I sit there and did it interrupt my Saturday afternoon nap? No, because I don't nap on Saturday afternoons. But I just thought it was a bit of Americana that was enjoyable to hear that. So
Yeah. 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 I've heard the football games going on and you can hear the crowds cheering, and that's kind of a fun thing, every once in a while too. It's enjoyable.
now I do know that sometimes if you live close to a field and it's got light on 24/7, which most of them don't, but I think in Westboro specifically, they're allowed to have the lights on 12 nights a year or something like that. I don't know if they still enforce that or if they ever did, but it was a limit, and that's because they didn't want to have that. But I think today with lighting, they can direct the lights so that you don't have light pollution going up. The lights go down to the field, and it's far less troublesome.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. There's usually a workaround. You just have to kind of, as you said, you have to kind of check out everything, right? You have to kind of like go into an area at night, go into an area at day, listen, see, even, talk to the neighbors. What kind of neighborhood is it? Are they nice neighbors? Are they not? And they'll be happy to tell you what's going on in the neighborhood. Do they have block parties, or is everybody kind of close their doors at 5 o'clock and not come out? It's just always interesting to kind of get a feel for a place, and that takes a little bit more work if you're a buyer.
Right, absolutely, no question about it. What are you seeing in the marketplace? Are you seeing people sticking their head out, or are they still being that hesitant conservative we talked about a little bit earlier?
I have people that are sticking their head out. There are people that are making offers on properties. There are other people that are being more hesitant. I think there's I think this is a good time, and folks realize it for purchasing a home. If it's because they're downsizing, or maybe they're moving in with family, or they're first time home buyers, this is a great opportunity to get out there and do the work up front and go see homes. As you said, there's more listings on the market. And when it comes to the conversation about interest rates, what I tell everybody is the same thing. Don't buy a home or not buy a home because of interest rates, because interest rates are going to be cyclical. They're going to go up, they're going to go down. Buy a home because you're ready to buy a home, and buy a home that you can afford. Don't buy a home that you can't afford, because that's only going to lead to problems. So that's where a lot of times I'll put my pre-approval clients through an exercise where I have them put the money aside, before they actually buy a home. This is roughly what we're budgeting for a mortgage payment. Start putting it aside. Does it feel okay, or does it feel like we're strapped? We don't have enough. Then
I think that's a brilliant strategy, Brad. I've told many of my clients to do that, and you've got to get the credit for the suggestion.
Thanks. But I think, as I said, I think it's a good time to buy. I think people are out buying right now. I don't think it's that frenzy, which I think is a good thing. And we expect interest rates to continue to drift right now. Rich interest rates, I would say, in the low to mid sixes. But we expect them to continue to drift down. That being said, I would not wait until interest rates get lower, because when they get lower, that will be the buy sign for every other person to jump back in the market, and you will more than make up any gain that you would have gotten having that lower interest rate by paying significantly higher prices on the purchase of a home, because you're going to have bidding wars.
Right. Exactly. And the frenzy bidding war thing, yeah, it's fun and all that, but at the end of the day, you're negotiating with someone else's money to a degree. Well, not to a degree completely, because the agent doesn't put money in, and it's a little scary when you've got we've got 10 offers on this property and they're all above ask. Okay. Yeah. I've had people come to me and say, I'm going to pay whatever it takes to get this property. And I remember in one case looking at him and saying, no, you're not. It's just, there's a point where the house just isn't worth it. And you get into appraisal considerations and all that. I don't want to have people overspending on a property.
Gary, that's so sound, and I'll tell you why. I had an agent bring a case to me this week where she was telling me she was working on a listing, and she is very likely not going to take the listing, and here's why. 2 years ago, the client bought the property, was a for sale by owner. The appraisal came in low. The seller said, you know what, you want the house, you got to pay, in this case, $50,000 more than the appraisal value. And the buyer wanted the house, and the buyer agreed to pay for it. She obviously didn't seek good counsel. She didn't have a buyer agent working for her. She didn't even listen to her loan officer, which wasn't me, by the way. She didn't even listen to her loan officer. She went and decided to do it. Now she has to sell the house, and the house isn't comping out. Meaning it's not coming in at what she paid for it to sell it. And and so it's a problem. And she's saying, well, maybe someone will come along like me and pay more. And the logic just isn't there. People don't want to pay more. This isn't that feverish economy that we were in during COVID, where I gotta have it,
Right.
At whatever the cost. A good, sound buying decision is paying what the house value is. Maybe you can go a little bit more, depending on inventory, but not a lot. Certainly not 50,000. So, it's really important to have the right team, and it's really important to make good decisions, not frenzied decisions.
When I first got into real estate, the guy that was kind of mentoring me said, don't fall in love with the brick. And yeah, that was actually really good advice. You see a house, you really like it, it speaks to you, blah, blah, blah. And if it's way overpriced, it's not a good deal. It's just not. And don't fall in love with the brick.
Exactly. I agree.
All right, Brad, any parting words?
You know what? Make good decisions. Like what you say to your kid when you're going out to college. Make good decisions, people. Look at the interest rates, look at the properties, get good advice from people like Gary and Sue and attorneys or mortgage people, and let these people that are in the business help guide you and listen to their advice. That's my sound words.
Sounds like you've been ignored lately.
No, not at all. I just believe in preaching the real estate gospel, my friend. Preaching the real estate gospel.
All right, Brad. Well, thank you very much. It's been fun, and I look forward to continuing this conversation next month.
Sounds good, Gary. Be well.
Thank you for watching All Things Real Estate. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to Brad or Gary.